in many parts of my life, because I haven't healed a part of myself, I become everything that is wrong with the board.
When we talk about healing, when we say becoming whole again, it's not the whole that you were at the beginning.
Actually, self-care originally was about that bit around good mental health, which is contributing to your community and being able to have agency over the world that is around you.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to us, I guess, first. And welcome to everyone that is listening or looking at us in this moment. And welcome to a new and exciting series of Design to Connect with us. And yeah, it's happening again.
Yes, always a new series.
Yeah,
On healing.
a series on healing. And we are not alone this time. We have an amazing, it's not even a guest, an amazing person with us. And Poppy is joining us on this ride into the healing path and into exploring what healing means for us. And yeah, what can we say? How are you, Poppy?
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much. I've been listening to the Design to Connect podcast on my runs. I'll tell you a bit more about that maybe a bit later on. But when we first met and couldn't stop talking between us, and then we come up with, well, actually, we can't just do one podcast. We need to do a bit of a series on this and bring the different elements to it. So I'm really excited that this is the first of 5 podcasts that we're going to be recording and videoing and putting out to our communities. And just keen to get on with maybe, this first session where we want to keep it quite light and explore what does healing mean.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess this episode is just like life. We'll see how it flows. And it's a bit crazy to me to think that I saw you 2 years ago in Bologna at a conference, and now here we are talking about healing.
Yeah.
It's just so random, but I'm so happy you joined, and thank you very much for being here.
Really.
I'm sad that we're not all back at Bologna drinking beautiful coffee and musing, but this is a very good close second.
Yeah. We have tea, all of us.
Tea
counts. Wow. No, I'm really genuinely excited. And seeing both of your beautiful faces is just.
And happy Valentine's.
Yeah, happy Valentine.
Yeah, probably people will listen to this.
Yeah, later, but still happy Valentine's.
It's always Valentine's. Yeah. So, Poppy, do you want to first tell us a little bit about yourself? Because we've been talking about ourselves for many hours. But I think we can start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about myself. It's great. All of our favorite subject, because it's the one subject that we're all experts on, right? So I'm Poppy Jaman. My main work through the last 20-something, almost 30 years now, has been in mental health. So I was the founder of an organization called Mental Health First Aid here in England, in the UK, and helped mental health first aid progress in many countries around the world. I'm currently the founder and vice chair of an organization called Mind Forward Alliance. These were both not-for-profits, and Mind Forward helps global businesses in the financial services sector to create a mentally healthy culture. Before that, I was a civil servant, and before that, I was a community development worker. And my side projects, or my love and heart project, given that it's Valentine's Day, is something called Sari Na Sori. And Sari, as in the garment, as this garment that I'm wearing today, a long unstitched piece of cloth that can be draped in any body. And there's an episode on that specifically, so I'm going to hold back on that. The word na means no in Bengali, and sorry, obviously in English. So I guess even the name is a metaphor for my life and the dual heritage that I have. And by dual heritage, I am Bangladeshi born to Bangladeshi parents, but I grew up in the UK, and that's what I mean by dual heritage, dual identity. And I think that's going to be quite an important part of the healing conversations that's going to unfold with our guests over the next 4 or 5 days. But so that's where I'm really learning a lot about how do we become healthy again? And and obviously mental health first aid, mind forward, there's a lot of work that we do that's very technical, very strategic. But I think at this stage in my career and life, I'm reflecting on how do I express myself? How do I work in small groups amongst my friends' communities, amount to actually really do some deep thinking about healing? And one of the things that I learned and say is that the opposite of depression is expression. And through the sari work, what I do is, because you can drape the sari in more than 200 ways, is run small group of fun shops, I call them, rather than workshops, to express, how do we express ourselves? And so that's, and I've got 4 adult children. We've got a blended family. I live in Brighton. So that's me. I'll stop there on that.
Beautiful. So many things.
Yeah, we could already unpack.
Yeah, but okay, I have a question. Go. Why mental health? How did you move to mental health, and how did that become
my do you know, so it was an accident. So and actually nothing in life is it really an accident. I think so why mental health was, in my early career, in school, I wanted to be, I was very good at science, so I wanted to be an engineer. But life didn't pan out that way. So at the age of 17, I was married, and that was a very unhappy period in my life. And I developed postnatal depression, and I didn't know it was postnatal depression because, and I'm very old. And back then, even in the UK, we weren't talking about mental health in the way that we do in society today. And I'm really pleased to say that I've played a part in normalizing the conversation around mental health. It's something that I hold with great pride. But I guess in that journey of early womanhood, becoming a mother, being in an unhappy relationship, one that I hadn't chosen to be in, and then coming out of all of that made me realize how little knowledge we had in our homes around the kitchen table amongst women, amongst Asian women, about what mental health was, what are the causations, and how do we support each other and ourselves in it. What does self-care look like? So I guess that's how my career then went into the world of mental health. But yeah, so my journey to then working with mental health was started as a community development worker, supporting people that, and actually that first job was out of need. Again, it wasn't out of choice. I was a mother with a young baby, suffering from depression, not really knowing whether my life was coming or going, in a very unhappy marriage, surrounded by a community that wanted me to stay in that marriage because they had chosen that for me. And I needed agency, and I needed to, and what I learned was actually, as a woman at that point in my life, the only thing that was going to give me agency was financial independence. And this is all retrospective stuff, right? So I didn't, think, oh my goodness, I need to go make a lot of money. I was like, I need to, the only way I'm going to be able to leave this relationship and stand up in the community, for what I want, for what my rights are, to have freedom is financial independence. So found a part-time job. My manager was phenomenally supportive. We never talked about mental health. We never talked about what was going on in my family and personal circumstances. But I think she knew, and I think when we tune into each other, we know, and that's part of what I want us to explore around healing and community, and how do we support each other. Anyway, she gave me great confidence. My next job was a next step up, and the career developed, and then I ended up working in race equality and mental health. Partly because I was articulate, partly because I had passion, and partly because I was just a little bit gobby. Just I didn't know what I didn't know, and sometimes naivety is a great resource for activism, right? Because once you know all the pitfalls in the world, the fear kicks in, and I'm definitely more afraid now than I ever was in my 20s, because I had less to lose, or I didn't know what I had to lose. So that's sort of why mental health happened. And then before I knew it, and had taken a breath, really, I was leading social enterprises that were hugely successful and making an impact. And I thrived on all of that. What about you two? Why are you two here doing healing?
It's, as you were saying, sometimes it's a bit of a retrospective. So you look at things you've done, and then you see, okay, so maybe I was on that path because of this reason. So sometimes I just stop and try to think, you're saying why healing, why I also always want to talk about mental health when it comes to building cities, building anything, even a chair. You need to understand what's the mental health or the health or the well-being that's the person that is going to use the chair will be into. And for me, it started all with thinking I want to do something that is meaningful, not only for me, but also for people around me. And I don't know, then it was architecture. Not sure how. I just chose something that for me was wide enough and was doing something that is also tangible. Like that was like my thinking around it. And then I was getting bored because they were just talking about putting lines on a paper and just doing some tape measure here and there. And I remember I was amazed when an architect from Slovenia came and he did this workshop, and he was like, okay, so now you have cardboard and you need to do a whole design and to build something. But before doing it, you just need to go and talk to people and understand what are their issues, and then you build something. And then I was like, yep. I mean, this makes sense to me. Like now I really understand why I'm here and why I want to do this profession. Is not because I just want to put nice things around the world, but it's really because I want it to be meaningful for people around. And I feel healing is part of it. Like sometimes we think that just talking to someone is, just talking, but it can be really amazing how much just a conversation can be the start of a healing process. I mean, just having a conversation. Like for me, just having that person telling me, okay, you are doing this for someone, not just for your pride. Of course, then you are proud of what you're doing and what you did. It was already amazing. And I don't know if it was healing. I mean, that's another episode in my life that I might talk about, but then it's just a conversation can start so many things. Yeah. But that was my why.
And Ariza, before you come in, what just a point of reflection on what you've just said there, Khadija, is that, who am I putting this together for? And I'm not sure whether it is healing, but I looked very briefly up at the dictionary definition of healing, and it's the process of becoming sound or healthy again. And I thought, okay, that's a really simple, neat, and we can unpack that, right? But the process is the thing that is stood to me. And when you just said what you just said, I just thought, well, you might be creating a chair, but that process of putting that chair together and understanding who's going to be sitting on it for how long and what they are going to feel like when they stand back up from that chair, that is the understanding that is required to create healing. So the process of becoming sound or healthy again, I think needs to be in every design thinking. And the world of neuroaesthetics is evolving as a scientific area, and again we can pick that up again in a minute. But I think that field of, the psychology of art, expression, or beauty, joy as a way of healing and creating mental health is what we can do. That's why I'm so interested in all the conversations that I've heard you speak, particularly the ones around safe cities for women. As somebody that is recently started running, the amount of planning I have to do when I'm in a new city to put new trainers on and get out is non-comparable to my male counterparts who also run. But we'll come back to all of those bits. What about you? That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. When Khadija talks, I feel that she's been born a bit healed, like in comparison.
The process of her arriving in the world has healed us all. Okay, absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try to just survive my days, and how you find things like some things come very easily to you and very natural to you, whereas like I have battles with them, and it feels that sometimes I need your voice as a healing voice next to me, because
I'm here for it.
But for me, where did it come from? For me, again, now I'm saying it as a story, because now that everything has passed, it's a narrative and I can connect the dots. But for me, healing, it's something that started like very personal because of the pains that I was in, and it was very connected then to the place that I was in, and let's say the system that I was in. So for me, the healing is so much personal, but it's very much connected to the systems, and then it's very connected to how we create board, and there are all these points that are very interconnected, and I will explain now. Maybe it becomes a bit more clear. But so I was born in Iran. I was a woman. I'm still. And I was born into a Baha'i family, which is a religious minority in Iran. So in general, it was not very easy to live, like from a very young age. I was like, in the conversations I was always hearing, maybe, a person went to jail, or they can kick you out of the school, they can kick you out of university. So these conversations, was always around me, and I kind of grew up with them. And when you're a child, you don't question them. It's a part of your reality. It's a part of your life. It doesn't seem sad. It's just, your reality, and it's okay, and you adapt. So when I was going to primary school, from the first day, my mom told me before going to school, she was like, I shouldn't talk about my religion to other people, or if they ask me to the manager room, how should I answer? I had to kind of also kind of be a perfect kid, because I was a representation of a minority group that could be picked on very easily. And through primary school and secondary school, twice I lost like my whole group of friends, because like our religious teacher told them that this girl is Baha'i, you shouldn't talk to her, like she's dirty and all of that thing. So from one day to another, my friends stopped talking to me. And like always a part of family was in jail, a part of friends were in jail. My friends' parents were taken away. So from when I was very small, just because of being a woman, and also because of being a minority, grew up in Iran, I think I started having a very deep issue with belonging. Because it seemed that no matter what I would do, I would never belong, you know. And I kind of responded to that by trying to be, the best at the school, because that was the only way, that I could kind of get an identity and be accepted. But at the same time, I started to become also the funny girl, because I couldn't go deep in conversations with anyone because it was not safe enough. If, I had a boyfriend, or if there was something happening at home, I could never share that with friends because everything at any moment could be used, against me. So yeah, I kind of created this different defense mechanisms of, being funny, but trying also to be or to act very intelligent. As a way to create identity for myself. And then when I came outside, it was again, I was a migrant, and I was always, not belonging. I was seen as a terrorist, as a Middle Eastern. And the way that showed in my life, it of course impacted the way that I acted. The wanting to be the intelligent one, just to belong, became an obsession to compete with other people. The belonging sometimes, it showed itself in obsession with the way that I looked, with the way that I talked, and that impacted the way that, I was behaving with other people. I was mean to them, and yeah, I have to still couple of times a day, like remind myself, like, you don't have to be the best just to be enough, just to belong. And it's creating a lot of issues in my life. I feel like when I look at a societal level, I think a lot of us are like facing with the same things, and it's impacting really the way that we are building the world. So all that to say, that's why I think healing is really important to take any step forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And
How sorry.
yeah. And I feel, as you said, we are all in the same boat. The fact that you were in Iran, I was in Italy, and the thing about being perfection and being perfect, I feel it's something that always recur as, I don't know, it's like a mechanism we have as a society / when you are a minority. I also had to be, the perfect girl at school and always having A+ because I represent, and you don't want to be, called out for that. And I feel also when we talk about healing, it's not, when we say becoming whole again, it's not the whole that you were at the beginning. It's a bit like, I was looking at there is a Japanese technique. I never remember the name. Maybe you remember. It's the one where they use gold or silver to put back the pottery.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's not less perfect that it was before. It's just a different thing. And it's, again, the process you have to go through. And I don't know, it's like you have to go through that process to become you at the end.
Yeah. And that,
But thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thanks to all of us for sharing those bits. I think it's the beginnings of 5 different conversations, and I'm sure more will come out. But I just wonder how many people listening will resonate with the different stories, and if it will create a bit of healing in the solidarity that exists, that sometimes we can feel quite alone in this current, in the social media world, when you're not physically around with other people, that it's just I'm the one that's feeling this. And isolation and loneliness is the same health hazards as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, right? So you've done nothing else in the first 20 minutes of just sharing, hopefully has created an environment where people might think about how they come to where they're at in a slightly different way. And also just the fallibilities of, when you adapt to fit in, it's not always a nice version of ourselves. And I think, thank you for saying that, actually, because
That's true.
we're surviving, right? So you're driven from fear and panic. And even though your current environment may be safe, your default is still there. I think one of the things that sort of popped into my mind, the process of becoming healthy again. And that assumes that we were unhealthy in the first place. And I think what's quite interesting about that is we like in a whole day, right? There is some bits of us are presenting really healthy, and then there's other bits of us that aren't. So in the same person on the same day, we can be having a multitude of emotions, because emotions are complicated. And I wondered whether healing is us embracing that complexity rather than I'm firing on all cylinders today. I look good. I've got an A+. I've got the car, whatever your material things are. I don't know. But, I live in the house that I want to live in. I've got, I am. Life is good. I'm in a great relationship. I wonder, because that's a perfectionist state that I don't think anybody ever gets to, because as soon as you've got there, there's another thing that you need to get. So I wondered what you both think of this idea that healing is embracing all of our flaws and our limitations and the hurt.
When you talk about emotion, it's where really we need to start to embrace, our wholeness. Like, we always feel that you have our rational self and then you have the emotions, but actually it's the same being. I mean, you cannot disconnect those. Like, emotions are so important for us to, regulate ourselves, to explore the world, to know what we are doing, what we are feeling. So the fact that we always detach those two things because they don't need to talk to themselves, it's part of, not being healed. And I totally agree that healing means embracing also. Not the materiality of things, as you're saying, but more, your inner self before going into the world. So for sure, emotion, feelings, and just being able to listen, it's so important, and it's so underrated, and it's so hard. I mean, it's not an easy task at all. And it has to start first from yourself, because the best you can listen to you, and then the better you'll be able to listen to someone that is in front of you or on your side, next to you. So for sure.
Yeah, I think it is, as you said, like holding all of that. Because I don't think it's one or the other. Like, in the sense that I think the moment that we are able to like sit with our emotions, not the moment, the years in whole life, then that within itself can lead to the feeling of contentment. Not that idea of, okay, like affirmations, I'm the most beautiful, I'm living in the best house or whatever. But yeah, I think that can lead to contentment and also an understanding of what we really need as a person, because until we don't sit with ourselves, like right now, a big issue that I have, and I think a lot of us have, is to really find the time. Not find the time, I have time, but to sit with my emotions and not escape from them by listening to a podcast, by reading a book, by, I don't know, scrolling through social media, always doing something just not to be alone with myself. And that's hard. When you're hurting a lot, it's much easier to distract.
Let me ask you a more specific question then, Arizu, and I love what you said about sitting with ourselves and being comfortable in our own skin. Where with the story that you just shared of your childhood, and I can see that a lot of healing has happened to be where you're at, doing what you're doing, put yourself out on these podcasts. It's just amazing. And so much more power to your elbow, I think, for that journey to continue. But where have you done the most healing to let go of some of those fears and the ostracization? Like, what do you think you have done, and how do you live now and how do you recognize that, in this moment I need to do X in order to continue my healing journey?
Yeah. The first thing that happened, it was not in that I decided to heal myself. I had a quarterly life crisis somehow. Like in my second semester of master, like I came here, I was happy, like I was in Europe, I was in a very high rating university, everything in outside looked good. My Instagram photos looked really nice. And I was getting, attention of boys, and from outside my life looked what the society tells us it should look like. And then in the second semester here, of my master's, suddenly everything fell down. I in my design studio, I couldn't get the grades. The teacher, the relationship was not working. And this was, my first identity. That was my intelligence, my whole life that dropped. Things in Iran were not good. My grandma got sick. My friends here, I was not really feeling close to them. I didn't have a supportive community. Life in Europe was really tough. It was really, really lonely. So yeah, in one semester, I think in a couple of months, every pillar of my life fell down. And yeah, I had no idea what I should have done, and I became really, really, really depressed. And I was normally, a very energetic person, always wanted to do things. That was, I think, also my way of not being alone with myself. But I became depressed to a point that I really couldn't go to school. I had to call my mom every day. For 20-30 minutes, she would talk to me and I would cry, and go to school, then again go to toilet, cry. And the journey of that year, I was just searching, for something to help me, and I came across some YouTube videos about depression and a spiritual awakening. And I was talking about sometimes when you're feeling depressed, it's because your spirit wants something more, and then you're not giving the life that it really deserves to it. So that was kind of the start of the journey. Started going to therapy that summer, then went to 2 other therapies, different amounts of superficiality, and now I'm doing really deep work on feeling my emotions, because I haven't felt them for 30 years. So right now it's so much about recognizing when I'm again answering from that fear of not belonging, and I become scared or I become obsessed. An example, yesterday I posted the LinkedIn post and it didn't get as many likes as I was imagining, and I felt not belonging, and my heart started rushing, and I felt completely out of control. And then I had to, and first, I went to scrolling. I went to, anything not to think about that. And it's, just sitting with myself and recognizing from where am I, where does this come from? I am safe right now. This doesn't mean, that I'm kicked out of the society. I'm okay. And then to be able to kind of answer from a more abundant self version of myself rather than, just getting scared and going there.
Now we know we needed to heal, but in that moment it was not obvious. So it's like, how do you realize you need to go into the journey of healing if you are into, a deep depression or you're not feeling yourself? And because one of the things that came into my mind when I was thinking about healing, it was, when were the time there was a trauma in my life. And usually, but when there is when there is someone that is not there anymore, it's so obvious that you need to go in, on that journey. And you have the 5 phases where, not for everybody, but there's a scientific background under, and I was thinking, probably the first time I thought that I was really in need of healing. No, I did not thought about it. That's again, now I know I needed to heal. It was during the first lockdown. It was the first time in my life nobody was around me. And I realized that I relied so much on being myself when I'm around other people, if it makes sense. So stupid things, like I'm in the office and I'm the one that knows where the stapler is or where everything is. So everything collapsed when I'm not there. And then suddenly I'm home and I'm not, nobody needs me anymore. And it was the first time I felt really like, what am I doing with myself now? It's only me, myself, and I. And now I know I needed to go into a journey. But as you were saying, it's almost, now that I thought about it, I saw the same journey that I had when I lost my grandpa. So, the denial, the depression and everything, I did the same after COVID, after the first lockdown. But now I know. How do you know when you are into the deep end of it? And sometimes I just feel that you need at least one person in your life to rely on. Because it's so much easier to see these things when you are outside of it. But you don't see it when it's you.
Yeah. And that's because that's what depression is, right? So that's the point of depression, is that we don't see. We can't see ourselves, which is why practicing sitting with ourselves is important, so that we know how to sit with ourselves when things get tough, so that we can actually see ourselves and ask the questions. But I think also, to your point, Khadija, it's really important to give permission to other people to actually offer help, because I think help-seeking behavior is a skill.
Yes.
It's not a weakness, it's a skill. And often we can go, well, actually, if I ask for help, I'm going to be perceived as weak, or I'm not going to be good enough. And that too is depression. The negative narrative of everything becoming overwhelming is depression. So I think good mental health is our ability to cope with life stresses. So it's not about, like I said earlier, I think, the opposite of depression is expression. How do we express ourselves? What does that mean? And what that means in 4 or 5 bullet points is, coping with the stresses of life. So what you described earlier, you had a panic yesterday because not enough people, not your expectation wasn't met on the social media thing that you did, and you panicked, but actually you coped, is how I look at that, because you went, I could now go into a unravel, or I could check in and go, this is okay. It's whatever the day it was. Everybody's busy. However you rationalized it, you self-soothed, so you coped with it. And you probably also did a bit of, I've been here before and I've coped with this before. And that's resilience thinking. That's how you build resilience. So good mental health is coping with the stresses of life, realizing our abilities or our potential, having the opportunity to realize our abilities, our potential, being able to learn and work well, contributing to our communities, making the ability to make decisions, build relationships, and shape the world that we are living in. So those are, these are World Health Organization definition, years and years. And when you look back at the history of what the mental health definitions, it's definitely not that. So we've come a long way in terms of the evolution of what we mean when we say mental health. So if we're all striving for those elements to be in our late lives, and the bit that I love the most is, shaping the world that we live in, like having influence, that's agency, that's freedom. That's not growing up with a normalization that people are going to be taken away and you might not ever see them because they showed their hair, they spoke up, that their voice was heard, things that are normal human rights isn't going to, and when that's normalized, because that's all you've seen and heard, how do you unravel that to go, actually, that's not normal? And then how do you live a life that is counter to that, particularly when communities that are, there's those issues are still existing in our first connections. It's not like it's back in history 100 years ago. That's all of those issues are still alive and you're living a different life. And I think one of the things that happens in the journey of healing is the guilt that we experience as privileged women, because in ways we are privileged women who aren't living, I'm not living my forced marriage situation, but there are many women and young children still getting married at an age that they should never have been married out of choice. My position now in life is privilege, so the guilt that sometimes is there about, survivor's guilt, if you want to, for want of another term, can also get in the way of healing. So I think it's healing is so complicated. It is nowhere near as simple as becoming healthy again, is it?
Definitely.
There's so many different elements to it, but I do want to sort of connect up. If good mental health are all of those things, let's just take making decisions again. Like when I'm struggling, and it doesn't have to be depression, it's a day that I'm struggling on and got significant brain fog. I can't decide what I want to eat that evening. And that becomes a bit of and then I might go to bed without eating because I couldn't make the decision, because it becomes an overwhelming decision, which is quite a weird thing to say, bearing in mind the job that I do and, and I'm a parent and constantly making decisions. So it's almost easy to go, well, when you lose the ability to make a decision in the moment and you're used to doing that all the time, it really freaks you out and it really knocks your confidence. And then it comes back and you're fine again, but you have to remind yourself in that moment that it's just a moment. But I think the deeper healing stuff, that we do long term. So Khadija, you talked about bereavement and loneliness and people being able to reflect back how we might be feeling and how they're observing us. There's sort of two things on that. And so yesterday I went for a run in London, and I just happened to be working. It's the first time I'd run in London, so there was a bit of a, oh my God, how is it going to be? Are there going to be lots of people? Yada yada. So to get over all of that. Anyway, I was then running in Trafalgar Square area, so St James's Park, which is very close to Trafalgar Square. And Trafalgar Square is a place where in the 60s, whenever you go there, there's loads of pigeons. There's a massive water fountain. There's 2 enormous lions. So it's like it's a square in the middle of London that's a very touristy place. And as I was running back, I had so let me just wind back a little bit. I'm planning to run a marathon in April. Midlife crisis, ladies, right? So I and have you run a marathon?
No.
Whenever you say I run, I'm like, how do you do that?
So I only started in August. I only started last August. From this journey, and I didn't tell anybody I was running a marathon until December because I needed to feel like I was in a confident enough place to be able to go, I am going to run the marathon. like tell everybody and then not be able to do it. So it's been a bit of a journey, and it has played a significant role in healing, and I'll come to that in a moment. But one of the so I've decided, having now told everybody, I'm going to be raising. Initially I was like, I'm not going to do sponsorship, and then I thought, no, I am. So I'm going to raise. I'm going to do a sponsorship for. I sponsor. Me and my family sponsor 3 nursing scholarships in a college in Bangladesh. Is one of the best nursing colleges in Bangladesh. And we started this scholarship in the legacy when my dad passed away. So the scholarship was in honor of him. But as I was setting up the scholarship, my mum's still here, and I thought, actually, the scholarship is going to be in their names, not just dad's. So the first name on the scholarship is Jubeda, and my mum. So that was me. I did a lot of thinking about misogyny, actually, and how this scholarship was going to be framed. And mum wanted to be a medic, actually, and she, in her day, she was doing school under a tree in Bangladesh. There was war there at that time. Women and girls were definitely not safe. The stories of the Birangana women, which is the warriors, the war veterans, the female war veterans of Bangladesh. Yeah, I think I can't remember how many hundreds of thousands of women were raped, and actually it was really bad story. So mum was a child during that generation, so her education never went anywhere, and she got married to dad quite young, and here we are. So there was something about honoring the fact that she never got to never got to education, and then dad passed away, and I was like, well, actually, how can I do this? So we set up this scholarship in Bangladesh, and the first two nurses finished their diploma imminently. They've done their final exams, and I'm hoping, and then they start their internship. And the other one, and then so we're going to continue these 3 scholarships. So I thought, right, I'm going to fundraise to see if I can get another couple added to the scholarship. Wouldn't it be nice to get 5 scholarships? And so on my run, I was thinking about this. And then as I was running towards Trafalgar Square, I had a really vivid memory of a photograph of my dad, black and white, in this, I think it must have been 60s or 70s, before I was born, in a massive, like the big collar shirt, stripy shirt, big collars, really tight, flared trousers, with all these pigeons on him. And it was at Trafalgar Square. And it's a really funny story, because I remember his hair on the picture is like that, because they're quite windy, and there was pigeons all over him. Anyway, there's loads of pictures. It was a stereotypical picture of that era where people would go to Trafalgar Square, pigeons on them, and they took pictures. And then as I started running back towards the office and towards Trafalgar Square, I thought, I don't think I can run that direction. And then I checked in on myself and was like, okay, what's going on here? Because I had a memory, and I was feeling grief again. And I thought, actually, the most healing thing for me to do is to go and honor that memory. So I ran around the fountains, like 3 minutes, right? I ran around the fountains and just unconsciously smiled at a man that once stood there, and imagining that he was still there, and just putting myself in that moment. And then I ran to the office and carried on with my day. And I just thought, healing is a lifetime process that you talk about. And whether it's big stuff that comes up from childhood, like the issues that you've both raised, or whether it is a bereavement of, a natural death of a parent or a loved one, and it's a bereavement that pops up, it would have been very easy, like you with the Instagram, with the social media, to go and do what you default do. It would have been very easy for me to go to that space and avoid it. I don't want to see it. But for me, the powerful moment is leaning in and accepting, running around it, and embracing the energetic stuff that comes, embodying that, and then moving through it. That I feel like has helped me grow a little today, in a way that I was a little bit less of yesterday, going back to Khadija's story of the bowls that are put together by gold and silver. There's another little bit of gold touch-up that went on. Whereas I think that would have been a gap that was left had I not done that simple thing. That makes sense?
Yeah. You faced it.
Mm.
And I think talking about it, it's such a beautiful thing, because I think there is so much shame that we feel because of the pains that we feel. If it's a big pain, it's hard to talk about it, and there is shame there. And if it's a pain like the one that I felt yesterday, it's kind of sounds like a pity pain. And so there's anyway, there is so much shame. And the moment that we are able to just share it with someone else, it's like we take away that very heavy shame that might be on our shoulder just because of going through life as a normal person. It's basically being a human, to experience pain and hardship and all of that. So yeah.
Can I ask, what does self-care mean to you?
Like, first answer is eating chocolate. We can go deeper than that.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still on that journey, because like the me before the first lockdown, it was so connected to the people around me. I mean, it's still there in some ways. So, self-care still goes a bit through what I can do with others. And usually food is part of it. I don't know I still need to understand what's the reason behind it, but really it's
Soothing.
yes, food is so comforting, and the togetherness. And I love there's this book from Adrienne Marie Brown, and it's called Emergent Strategies. And like probably in the first chapter, but really early in the book, she talks about how much we are connected, but she does it talking about oak trees. And I love that what she says is, like, the analogies she puts in the book is, oak trees don't wait for the storm to have their roots coming together and being binded, so they are sound when the storm comes. And I feel like cherishing those moments where it's not about at least for me, it's not about myself, but it's about me being with people that makes me feel good. It's one of those moments that I'm putting together to be sound when the storm is coming. So yeah, for me, it's really a lot about feeling good with who I have around me. But yeah. And it's just like, adding pearls next to pearls, and then having a nice necklace that you can look at when you need it. And food. But I already said food. That's key.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My husband always said that my face is not as near as happy as when I'm in front of something I love. It's just that. I love eating. Yeah. Of course.
I love eating.
Yeah, love eating. Not him. Food. Yeah, you should see. I have a whole collection. He made an album of me in front of food that I'm enjoying and to eat. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's true. That's something that really, it's part of my self-healing.
Oh my God. So just aside, while Iris is thinking, like, India, I've just come back from India. I spent January in India, and my husband took a video. I've got a whole collection of food every time I'm eating something.
Yeah.
So there's like a picture of me going through India with 3 weeks eating, but a video of me they do this amazing. It's called bapa mas, which is a mustard sauce put on a fish, wrapped in banana leaves, steamed. Oh my! Like both of your mouths are watering. Oh, ladies, like this fish was, and I knew that in Kolkata that was their signature dish. So there's just so many pictures of me in this fish with just plain rice with my fingers, like belonging, right? And every single.
Yeah, now that you said food, I think food is also a big thing for me. it wasn't before because I was overweight as a child, so I had a journey also with letting myself enjoy food because I didn't for a very large portion of my life. But yesterday, for example, after I was able to sit with myself, I suddenly wanted Persian kebab. And we went to the supermarket and we bought the stuff and we made it. And oh my gosh, it just, it's like it hugged me.
Yeah.
But rest, I think, is a big thing for me. Like really rest, do nothing. I think it's another thing that I didn't let myself do for so many years. So that is helpful, and being in nature. I think these three things. Yeah. Being with loved ones, I don't have access to very close loved ones here, except like Ricardo and of course now the friends that I have. But yeah, I mean, if I had access to family, that would be.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel, I mean, for me, we don't need so many people around us. I keep it on seeing my brother and always love him, and sometimes he's enough, And sometimes we feel number, it's something important, but no, it's more the quality. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah.
And so I did a bit of research there's an article. It's in an online magazine which I don't know if I've read before, but I will share the article with you guys so that you can put it on this, because I just thought it was really interesting. So I did a little bit of research on self-care ahead of this, and I was just thinking, where does self-care come from? Where is that ideology? Where did it originate? And just uncovered something that was really fascinating, and it really resonates with what both of you have said. Very naturally said, for you, self-care is about being around. A part of it is about being around loved ones with food, ideally, but and
we don't want them without it.
But they must bring a dish. But in the 1950s, self-love was a radical movement, part of the civil rights movement. And self-love was a movement by the Black Panther Party, where they recognized that in order to stay energized in their activism, they needed to take care of their communities. And where healthcare and social care was not on an equal footing, so Black people weren't getting the same healthcare, same programs that was going, initiatives weren't there, including healthcare, to help because of racist systems. The movement, the community created programs, created centers, created initiatives to help Black women stay well, to help minority of minority groups to stay well, so that they could all I wasn't there, be main activists together. So self-care in its form as the first time it appeared was a radical new concept by the civil rights movement, where we were saying we are going to take care, in order to do the work that we need to do to change systems and to not burn out, we need to take care of ourselves. So self-love is an act of activism. I was like, I given that there's 51 million hashtags on self-care on Instagram, right? Which is all about, and there's nothing wrong with this, face masks and warm and hot teas. Actually, self-care originally was about that bit around good mental health, which is contributing to your community and being able to have agency over the world that is around you. So I was like, and I feel so anchored in the self-care philosophy today more than I have ever been before, because it was about community and us supporting each other and supporting and bringing people that didn't have equal access to health and healing, creating the environment so that they were ready to continue and doing the work that was necessary to create the change that I now benefit from as a brown woman, us as women of color benefit from. So in many ways for me, like if we go back to what healing is about and the deep work, it is about the recognition of some of the ancestral work, some of the history, some of the things that had to happen for me to be here today. Then in the 1960s, the medical profession got hold of the term self-love and self-care, and it became about increased patient autonomy, because back then, everything and they know best. And I know some doctors still think that, and a lot of society still, the doctors know everything, but actually that this self-care was adopted from the civil rights movement into giving patients agency and autonomy, and teaching, how to do individual acts so that it improves health. And then you can imagine, so then 70s and 80s, and we've arrived where we've arrived. So one of the, because I had started getting a little bit like, oh God, another self-care product that someone wants, right? And because I had simplified it in terms of marketeers have used it as a tool to sell us material things. And today, for me, self-care is anchored back into community cohesion, not feeling lonely, and actually being ready. We don't need to all be out there fighting every social injustice that's out there, but I imagine in our small ways we're all probably still acting in a way, whether it's we're donating a bit of our time, giving space to an agenda, listening, learning. We're probably all in some way being activists. And those of us that are in the roles and the jobs that we are doing, where we're doing some deep thinking on how to actually design a space that is going to be a safe for women, for disabled people, or for the, who am I creating this for, and what does that look like? What's my voice, and all of that takes away. And so therefore self-care is a really crucial part of continuing to do well, so that we can be, for me at my age, I constantly sort of think about how can I be the shoulders that the next generation stand on, because that's where I'm at in life. And that requires for me to remain strong, hence the running starting and trying to actually. But the other thing about the running bit, and it is my act of self-care, is my last bout of depression a year and a bit ago. I stopped moving, I stopped exercising, so I was working fine, but a lot of things behind the scenes were completely not right. And I said earlier about giving permission to loved ones to give you feedback, and and the roots of the oak trees being strong that you mentioned. You need to do that when you're well, so you need to tell them what works. Right, this is my normal, this is my abnormal, and when I'm behaving like this, I really want you, I invite you to hold up a mirror and tell me, because I know that when I'm in that place, I'm not able to see me, and I need you to see me at that time. So actually my husband played that role at that time, and I eventually got there. The first time didn't work. It was months of chipping away at me to see where I was at. And one of the things that I thought was okay, I did, for me, there was a couple of things, I needed to relearn how to concentrate, because I was so deep into scrolling, not taking anything in, but being distracted by everything. So that was one of the things that I needed to do. And then the other thing I needed to do was learn to get back into my body. And movement and mental health are completely interconnected. Whether it's dancing, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna take up just jogging again, and see how I can get. And it's been amazing, and I'm really hoping and touching wood that this journey continues, because by moving and being in my body and going out into the green space, it's actually increased my ability to concentrate. I'm no longer practicing bad habits that were taking me away from being present with myself. And these are cycles. These have been life cycles, and each time there's another iteration.
Yeah.
But it surprised me doing the job that I do that I still fell foul of all of because you just don't see it because you think
cannot
you're
see
doing all.
it.
Yeah.
Cannot see it. So those were some of the things that I did. I know that we're nearing the end,
Yeah.
but I think it's quite nice to always sort of leave the podcast with some practical tools and techniques. And for me, that, how do I learn to concentrate in a world where every bit of information is coming so fast at us that we don't pause, take it in, critically analyze it, and ask ourselves, is this real? Does this mean something? How do I actually validate what I'm reading and do a deep dive into a subject rather than repeating the last thing that we heard someone say? Because our first thought is often the last thing that we heard someone say about a subject. It's never our own thought. You have to actually ask yourself and do that 3 times before you get to a place where you've got a real opinion. It's your opinion of a subject. And given how polarized society is at the moment, I really feel like self-care is going to be us, our oak tree roots coming together and us understanding more. But I encourage everybody to move a little. I'm not talking about running marathons, just
not doing that.
Minutes. Yeah, a couple of minutes, and master something. So the other thing I think is really important is the art and mental health. And I know we're going to have a session on that. But I looked up again, I'll put the link in, MoMA, the Museum of Modern Arts. MoMA has got, there's a whole section on the healing power of art, and they've got exercises on there.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of them, and I was like, so they were just, and I'm not going to do a spoiler, but again, for anybody listening, if you want to do some 12-minute, 15-minute exercise through the MoMA art exhibition on healing power of art, it was commissioned, it was in collaboration with World Health Organization to develop solidarity, which goes back to my point about self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care at this point in time is solidarity. And in this moment with you amazing women.
And as you were saying, both about, self-care and healing, because, I think self-care is a part of healing, probably. I think even the thought that you had that you, at this point of your life, you want to be someone that others, can stand on your shoulder, I think comes from you being healed and you giving yourself that self-care. And I think the self-care and the healing doesn't only lead us to be able to be better activists and create change, but the absence of it is, I think, whatever we see that is wrong with the world. And I think for me, that's why healing is really important, because I've seen myself over and over again. That's why I say Khadija were healed. But that in many parts of my life, because I haven't healed a part of myself, I become everything that is wrong with the world. Like in the moments, when I was 25, when I was over shopping, when I was consuming a lot just, to feel whole, or when I was competing with other people, or, when I was not being nice to other people. And, I could have easily become any of the characters that I see on TV. And I'm like, they are destroying the world. And I think that's why it's really, really important, because we can all become the ones who destruct, who consume, who destroy the planet, who do wars, and it always comes from these holes that we have inside ourselves. And if we don't put the time, or maybe we don't even know that we have it, and we just react to whatever we have around us because of whatever we've been taught about and how much we've been hurt. So I think it helps us to be active and to do good, but lack of it also can be destructive and can be really the root of everything that we see around us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think as you're saying, we kind of behave. How do we see sometimes the word working around ourselves? It's human. So it was there is a theory that is called the broken windows theory. And basically what the theory is saying is, if you want, you just delve into it. But basically what the theory is saying is when an environment around you is littered, there are high chances that you're going to be also littering the environment around you. So I feel, as you're saying, self-care, starting from self-care, because you need to take care then of your community. It's key. And I don't know, I find it also beautiful. Yeah. As
Probably a really good sentence to end on.
yeah,
I find it. Also,
isn't it? I don't know what I said, but yeah, probably it is. I said something.
The thing.
I
Yeah.
find it also. Yeah. So we've unpacked healing. You've hopefully given lots of food for thought to people to go on their own journeys.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with anything that
no.
we have said at all. It's a discussion and we're on a journey. But what I would say is we're probably already doing the healing work. It's just maybe surfacing it and being more intentional about it. So we touched on healing through art today, and go and have a look at the MoMA Connect link that we put on. But next session is very curated, and we're very excited that we probably have a bit of music. We'll probably get you doing stuff, and it's more of a online workshop that we're going to be recording, and we're very excited because I've done it before.
Yeah, but now we call them fun shop. You should copyright it. It's so good. Yeah,
It's true.
Yeah, we can have online fun shop.
Thank you. Thank you.